My father sold my baby's cradle while I was in the hospital fighting for her life. My name is Adam. I'm 28 years old, and I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. I coach high school baseball, but for the past year, my world has revolved around something way more important: becoming a dad. Sophie, my wife, is the strongest person I know. She's 27, a freelance photographer, and more recently, a nesting hurricane in yoga pants. After 3 years of fertility specialists, failed rounds of IVF, and a couple of heartbreaking losses, we finally made it. She's pregnant, 32 weeks. Our little girl, Lily, is almost here. Most nights, we sit in the nursery, just staring at the walls like weirdos. The room used to be our shared art studio: exposed brick, high windows, canvases stacked against every wall. Now, it's yellow and white with watercolor rainbows and a little wooden shelf shaped like a sailboat. Every corner of it means something. The framed photo of Sophie's dad sanding down the hull of a boat. The ceramic bunny her grandma sculpted in the 70s. And the centerpiece of it all, the cradle. That cradle, it means everything. Sophie's dad passed away 2 years ago, right after our second miscarriage. He was a boat builder by trade, quiet, steady, smelled like sawdust and peppermint. Before he died, he gave Sophie a wrapped bundle and said, "For your daughter, whenever she gets here." Inside was a cradle he'd crafted from the ribs of an old sailboat. Reclaimed shipwood, salt-scarred and warm. He'd sanded it until the curves looked like waves. I remember the way Sophie cried when we unwrapped it. Like full-body sobs, the kind that knock the wind out of you. We sanded it again last fall, just lightly. I stained it while Sophie painted tiny constellations on the base. She said, she'll be able to look up at stars before she can even walk. That's Sophie, always dreaming bigger than the room can hold. We knew from the beginning that this pregnancy would be high risk. Her hormone levels were low, and the doctors said we had to be careful. No long walks, no stairs, no stress. Like telling a pregnant woman not to stress ever works. Still, we kept hopeful. She took every pill, went to every checkup, and every week we'd lie on the floor, her belly tucked under my palm, listening to Lily kick. Strong, defiant. We talked to her like she could hear us. I'd tell her about baseball, about the time I pitched a no-hitter at 14. Sophie told her about lighting tricks in aperture. We joked that Lily would either be the next Georgia O'Keeffe or a pitcher with a wicked curveball. There were moments we let ourselves believe the hard part was behind us. The nursery came together slowly, but with so much care. Every little decision felt holy. Sophie cried when the first ultrasound showed 10 fingers. I cried when I found a pair of hand-knitted booties in a thrift shop and bought them without thinking. That night, she came out of the bathroom holding the booties, her eyes wide. "You bought baby clothes." "Yeah," I said sheepish. Guess I cracked. She held them up to her belly. "They'll fit her feet for, 6 minutes. "Best 6 minutes of my life," I said. And it was true. The last touch in the nursery was a quote Sophie painted over the changing table. It read, "You are our wildest wish come true." She did it in soft script, the kind that looks handwritten. Every time I walked in that room, I read it without meaning to. Sometimes, at night, we'd lie in bed and she'd reach for my hand without saying anything. "She's coming," I'd whisper. "I know," she'd say. "I feel her." And we did. In every choice, every moment. We were already a family. All we needed now was for Lily to get here safe. It happened on a Tuesday morning, 2 months earlier than expected. Sophie had been feeling off all night, cramping, a weird tightness that wouldn't let up. Around 4 a.m., I found her hunched over the bathroom sink, both hands gripping the edges like she was trying to hold herself together. I think it's time," she whispered. My brain kicked into autopilot. I grabbed the hospital bag, wrapped her in the biggest hoodie I could find, and practically carried her to the car. Her breath came in shallow bursts, and I kept saying things like, "We're okay. You're okay," even though my hands were shaking on the wheel. Lily wasn't supposed to come yet. Not for another 10 weeks. The delivery room was chaos. Nurses moved fast, speaking in clipped voices. Sophie's OB arrived within minutes, her face tense but calm. Sophie kept whispering, "It's too early, it's too early," over and over, like she could wish it away. When Lily was born, she didn't cry right away. I didn't breathe until she did. She weighed 2 pounds, 11 ounces. Skin translucent, limbs impossibly small. They placed her in an incubator so fast, I didn't even get to touch her. Just a glimpse. Tiny hands curled like flower buds, eyes shut tight. Then she was gone, wheeled down the hall to the NICU with a team of nurses and machines. I turned back to Sophie. She looked like she'd been wrung out, sweat-drenched and pale, but her eyes were locked on the door where Lily had disappeared. "Is she okay?" she rasped. "I don't know," I said, which was the truth. And it killed me. The first day in the NICU felt like a bad dream we couldn't wake up from. Lily was hooked up to tubes and machines that beeped and blinked like some futuristic experiment. Her chest rose and fell in tiny, irregular movements. I kept thinking, that's my daughter. That little thing right there. We didn't leave the hospital. For days, we lived in folding chairs and those stiff plastic couches in the waiting room. Sophie refused to sleep unless it was in a chair next to Lily's isolette. The nurses gave us blankets, and we started keeping a stash of granola bars and vending machine snacks in our backpack. Coffee came from a machine that tasted like rust, but we drank it anyway. Sometimes, when Sophie managed to sleep for an hour or two, I'd just sit and stare at Lily, trying to memorize everything about her. The way her fingers twitched, the soft sighs she made when she wasn't crying. The nurses said she was a fighter. I believed them. I called my brother Mark on the third day. He lived 10 minutes from our house and was the only person I trusted enough to ask for help. Can you swing by the house? I asked. Just grab the mail. Make sure everything's locked up. Yeah, of course, he said. Want me to feed the cat too? We don't have a cat, Mark. Right, he said, sheepish. I'll just check on stuff. One more thing, I added. No one goes inside. No one. Just grab the mail and go. You got it, man. Mark's never been the most responsible guy, late 30s, single, still thinks instant ramen is a food group, but he meant well. I figured if he stuck to the basics, it'd be fine. What I didn't count on was my father, Rick. We hadn't talked in months. Not since the baby shower, where he called the whole nursery setup delusional and laughed at the hand-painted quote on the wall. What's next, he said. You gonna teach her Latin in the womb? He never believed we'd actually have Lily. Said we were wasting our money, our time, our hope. When I told him about the cradle Sophie's dad built, he rolled his eyes and muttered, another damn antique taking up space. Still, part of me hoped he'd come around once Lily was born. That maybe seeing her, tiny and alive and real, would change something in him. But that hope was shrinking by the minute. The NICU days blurred together, alarms, oxygen levels, nurses checking vitals. Sophie stopped eating full meals. I had to beg her to drink water. We took turns holding Lily through the portholes of the isolette, our hands scrubbed raw from sanitizing. We barely spoke, except in whispers. She's strong, I'd say, brushing Sophie's hair back. She has to be, Sophie would reply, eyes fixed on the monitors. On the 7th day, we got a little good news. Lily had gained 3 ounces. The nurse smiled when she told us. Sophie cried. That night, I stood outside the NICU and texted Mark. Just a quick check-in. Me? Everything good at the house? Mark? Yeah, man. All good. I didn't notice the hesitation in his reply. Not then. Later, I would think back to that moment and wonder how I missed it. How I didn't feel the shift. Because while Sophie and I sat in that hospital, breaking ourselves open to keep our daughter alive, something else was happening back home. Something we never saw coming. I found out what happened at the house the day Mark stopped replying to my texts. At first, I figured he was just being Mark, flaky, forgetful, maybe distracted by some online poker game or whatever project he never finished. But by the 3rd unread message, something didn't sit right. I called. He didn't answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. Then, the following morning, he showed up at the hospital. I was sitting in the NICU lobby with a styrofoam cup of coffee I hadn't touched when I saw him walking toward me. He looked pale. Not just tired, genuinely sick. Like he hadn't slept in days. Hey, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I stood. What's going on? I need to talk to you. About what? But he didn't answer right away. Just sat down hard on the chair across from me and rubbed his hands over his face. I messed up, he said finally. Bad. My stomach tightened. Mark, what the hell happened? He looked up, eyes glassy. Dad showed up. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, my voice came out low and sharp. You let him in? I didn't mean to, okay? He just showed up. Said he wanted to help clean up, make the place nice for when you and Sophie came home. My heart dropped into my gut. I told you, no one goes inside. I know, he said, leaning forward. I know, man. I screwed up. I just thought he was calm. He acted like he was trying to do the right thing for once. Said he was proud of you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Proud of me. Mark looked away. How long was he there? I asked. A couple hours. Maybe more. I stared at the floor, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Mark, I said slowly, what did he do? He didn't answer right away. Just swallowed and looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Then he said it. He had a garage sale. At first, I didn't understand. Eh, what? A garage sale, he repeated. He dragged stuff out of the nursery, boxes of baby clothes, toys, everything. Said it was clutter. Said it was better this way, that you guys needed a clean slate. I blinked. He sold our stuff? Mark nodded, eyes downcast. When I got there, people were walking off with boxes. A lady had your glider chair in the back of her van. I tried to stop it, but I didn't even know what had already been sold. I found the changing table in a neighbor's driveway. It was all out there, man. The clothes, the baby monitor, even the cradle. The word hit me like a slap. The cradle? I said, voice cracking. Mark froze. Please tell me he didn't sell the cradle. He looked up at me, his face full of guilt. I think so, he said. I didn't see it. I asked, but he just shrugged. Said it was probably gone already. He didn't even care. I sat down. My knees had stopped working. That cradle was all we had left of her dad, I said. He built it with his hands. He made it for Lily. I know, Mark said, tears threatening. I'm sorry, man. I should have stopped him. I should have never let him in. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stared past him, heart pounding in my ears. What did he say? I asked after a long silence. Did he know Lily's in the NICU? Mark hesitated. Yeah, I told him. That she's premature. That it's serious. And he still did this. Mark nodded. He said, and I'm quoting here, that baby might not make it anyway. My mouth went dry. He said it like it was a fact. Like he was doing you a favor by getting rid of the reminders. That was when I stood. I couldn't sit anymore. Couldn't breathe in that space. Mark reached for my arm. I'm sorry, Adam. I didn't mean for any of this. I didn't know. I pulled away. You didn't mean to, I repeated. But you still unlocked the door. He didn't argue. He just nodded, defeated. Does Sophie know? I asked. No. I haven't said anything. Don't. Adam. Don't. I said firmer. Not yet. Not until I figure out how the hell I'm going to tell her that her dad's gift, her legacy for Lily, is gone. I walked back into the NICU in a daze. Sophie looked up from her chair, Lily's impossibly tiny hand curled around her finger through the isolette port. She smiled softly. Hey, everything okay? I nodded. Yeah, just needed some air. But inside, something was unraveling. My father had always been a manipulative bastard, but this was another level. This was cruelty masked as concern. A deliberate decision to strip our daughter's room down to nothing, to erase the hope we'd built, piece by piece. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a message, and I'd heard it loud and clear. 2 weeks later, Lily was cleared to come home. She'd gained enough weight, her lungs were stronger, and the doctors finally used the word we'd been aching to hear. Stable. Sophie cried when they said it. I think I did too, but I blamed it on the hospital air. We signed all the paperwork, loaded up her car seat with the gentleness of people handling glass, and took our baby girl home. Home. Except it didn't feel like home anymore. As soon as I turned the key in the front door, I felt it. Wrongness. Like someone had cracked the house in half while we were gone and left it looking the same on the outside, but empty where it mattered. Sophie walked in first, holding Lily against her chest in that gentle new mom way, the way you cradle everything with 2 hands. Her eyes scanned the living room, then drifted to the hallway. She froze. Adam, she said softly, why is the nursery door open? I'd closed it before we left. I know I had. It was instinct. Locking away something sacred. I set down the diaper bag and crossed the hall behind her. The room looked gutted. The walls were the same, sure, the soft yellow paint, the framed quote above the changing table. But the changing table was gone. So was the glider, the mobile, the baskets of baby books, the handmade quilt Sophie's aunt sent from Colorado, and the cradle. Gone. Where is everything? Sophie asked, her voice small and cracking. Adam, where's the cradle? She turned to me, her eyes already full of tears she didn't understand yet. I started, but the words died in my throat. I couldn't lie. Not now. Not with Lily in her arms. I took a breath and stepped toward her, gently placing my hand on her back. Sophie, I said, there's something I need to tell you. She stared at me like she already knew. I told her everything. About Mark. About Rick. About the garage sale. About the strangers who came and went, carting off pieces of our hope like it was secondhand junk. I didn't leave anything out. I couldn't. Sophie sat down on the carpet where the cradle used to be. Lily whimpered softly, sensing the shift in the air. Sophie didn't cry right away. She just sat there, stunned, rocking slightly as if to comfort herself. He sold it, she said finally, barely above a whisper. I nodded. The cradle? My dad's cradle? I'm so sorry. Her face crumpled, and she held Lily closer. He had no right, she whispered. No right. We stayed like that for a long time, the 3 of us sitting in the wreckage of what used to be a nursery. When I finally stood up, I called Mark. He picked up on the second ring. She knows, I said. He didn't say anything. You need to tell me exactly what happened. From the beginning. No more stalling. I'm sorry, Adam, he said. I thought if I could fix it before you got back, but I couldn't. You said the cradle was probably sold, I said. But did you see it? Do you know for sure? There was a pause. No, he admitted. I didn't see it. But there was a woman. Young, maybe mid-20s. I saw her looking at it when I drove up. She asked me if it was real shipwood. I didn't put 2 and 2 together until later. Do you remember anything else? What she looked like? What kind of car? A white Subaru, he said. Out-of-state plates. I think Massachusetts. I took a deep breath, pressing my thumb and forefinger against my eyelids. Where's Dad? I asked. I don't know. He's not at his place. I hung up and got in the car. Sophie didn't ask where I was going. She just looked up from the couch, eyes red, and nodded like she already knew. Rick still lived in the same worn-out ranch house 30 minutes outside of town. When I pulled into the driveway, his truck was there, along with Mom's car. I didn't knock. I walked straight in. He was sitting at the table, eating cereal like it was any other morning. My mom was folding laundry on the couch. They both looked up like I'd walked in wearing a bomb. You sold our daughter's cradle, I said, my voice steady. Rick leaned back in his chair, not a hint of guilt on his face. That nursery was overkill. All that junk piling up in there. Someone had to do something. My jaw clenched. You had no right. That cradle was made by Sophie's dad. He's gone. That was all we had left of him. Rick shrugged. Then maybe you shouldn't have left your house wide open. I took 2 steps forward before my mom stood up. Don't do this, Adam, she said quickly. We're not having a fight in this house. Oh, we're past fighting, I said. This is me telling you I'm done. Rick laughed, loud and forced. You're mad about some furniture? Grow up. That baby wasn't even supposed to make it. Stop, I said, my voice louder now. Don't you dare talk about her like that. He stood up now too, taller than me, hands on his hips. You act like this was some act of war. I was helping you, cleaning up your mess. That room was a museum to something that might not even. Say one more word, I warned. He didn't. He just stared, smug and bitter. I turned to my mom. You let him do this? She looked away. He said it was for the best. Then I guess you both made your choice, I said. Don't come to the house. Don't call. You're done. You can't just cut us off, she said, voice trembling. We're family. I nodded slowly. Not anymore. I walked out the door without looking back. It slammed shut behind me, and I let it. When I got home, Sophie was still in the nursery, rocking Lily in her arms. She looked up when I entered, and I could see the question in her eyes. I cut them off, I said. All of them. She didn't say anything, just nodded and pulled Lily closer. And just like that, the bridge burned behind us. No smoke, no flames, just silence, and the echo of everything we'd lost. The next morning, Sophie was already on the front porch with her laptop and a notebook, sipping coffee with Lily strapped to her chest in a soft wrap. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked calm, determined. I made a list, she said when I stepped outside. A list of everything that's missing, what we can replace, what might still be out there. Her voice was steady, but I saw the tightness in her jaw, that edge of fury right beneath the surface. Sophie wasn't broken, she was in battle mode. We started by knocking on doors. The garage sale had taken place on a Saturday morning, and our street's the kind where neighbors still wave from their driveways and know each other's dogs by name. Someone had to have seen something. On the third house, we got lucky. An older woman named Mrs. Downs opened the door and said, "Oh yes, I remember the sale. Your dad was real chatty. Told me your baby was already gone." Sophie flinched at the words. Mrs. Downs's expression changed immediately. "I'm so sorry, dear. I just meant, that's what he said." Sophie nodded. "Do you remember anything else? Did you see who took the wooden cradle?" The woman thought for a second, then smiled. "Yes, actually. A young woman. Dark hair, wore glasses. Very polite. She said she loved antiques. Had a Subaru, Massachusetts plates, I think. That matched what Mark said." Mrs. Downs glanced at the notebook in Sophie's hand. "She left a card with your father. Said she'd be moving into town next month and might need more furniture. I asked for one too, just in case." She shuffled inside and returned with a small white business card. Claire Benton, teacher, expecting mother, email, c.benton82@gmail.com. I took a photo of it on my phone. "Thank you," I said. "Seriously." Mrs. Downs just smiled kindly. Some things are meant to find their way home. That afternoon, I sent Claire an email. Subject, about a cradle. "Hi Claire. I believe you may have purchased a wooden baby cradle at a garage sale a couple weeks ago on our street. It belonged to my wife's late father. He built it by hand. Unfortunately, the sale happened without our knowledge while we were at the hospital with our newborn daughter. We're trying to recover the cradle. I understand if you're attached to it now, but we'd be happy to reimburse you for whatever you paid, plus extra. Please let us know either way. Sincerely, Adam R." She replied less than an hour later. "Hi Adam. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yes, I bought the cradle. It was beautiful and looked like something with a real story behind it. I had no idea it wasn't meant to be sold. I'd be happy to return it to you. No need for extra payment. I paid $40. Just give me an address and I'll bring it by this week. It deserves to be with your family. Warmly, Claire." I read it twice before I showed Sophie. She didn't say anything. Just exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for 2 weeks. We met Claire the next afternoon in the grocery store parking lot. She opened the back of her SUV and there it was, scratched on one side. One leg slightly splintered, but still solid, still beautiful. Still Lily's. Sophie ran her fingers over the edge of the wood and whispered, "He'd be so relieved." Claire didn't ask questions, just smiled, handed it over, and told us congratulations. I took the cradle to a restoration guy my assistant coach recommended, Ben, a quiet guy with tattooed arms and a garage full of woodworking tools. He barely said a word after I explained the story, just nodded, measured it, and said, "Give me a week." Back at home, Sophie was already posting in local Facebook groups, asking if anyone had picked up baby gear at a recent yard sale and would be willing to return it for reimbursement. We got a few hits: our baby monitor, a box of books, the whale-shaped humidifier Sophie had splurged on because babies need whales. One woman brought back a stack of onesies and apologized 10 times. "I wouldn't have taken them if I knew," she said. "He told us the baby didn't make it." We didn't correct her. We didn't know Rick the truth anymore. We changed the locks that same week. Installed cameras, front porch, back door, motion sensors in the hallway. I didn't want Sophie waking up in the middle of the night, wondering who might be on our porch. That kind of fear had no place in our home. By the weekend, we had recovered about 1/3 of what had been taken. Some of it we let go of. Some of it we bought new. But the cradle, that was our anchor. That was the line we weren't willing to cut. When Ben called to say it was ready, I picked it up alone. He had polished the wood until it gleamed. The scratches were gone. The paint on the constellations was preserved, even retouched where Sophie's brush had once slipped. He handed it over carefully and said, "You ever want to have a backup made? I'd be happy to do it. But this one's got soul." I brought it home that evening. Sophie was sitting in the nursery, Lily asleep against her shoulder. She looked up as I walked in with it and let out a single laugh. It sounded like relief. We set the cradle in the corner, right beneath the quote she had painted. "You are our wildest wish come true." Lily stirred in her sleep, making that soft newborn squeak we both loved. And for the first time in weeks, the room felt like home again. Not because everything was back, but because the thing that mattered most had made its way back to us. Our fight to rebuild wasn't over. But this was the first piece. And we were ready for the rest. A week after we got the cradle back, I installed a full perimeter security system. Motion-activated floodlights. High-definition cameras with night vision. Smart locks on every door. Even a sign out front that said property monitored 24/7. It wasn't just about keeping people out. It was about giving Sophie peace. After what Rick did, I couldn't let her feel unprotected again. Not in our own home. Not with Lily sleeping in the next room. Sophie didn't argue. She just handed me her phone and said, "Delete their numbers." So I did. My father's, my mother's, even some extended family I hadn't heard from in years. Anyone who had stood by quietly while the nursery was stripped bare didn't get access anymore. We weren't doing family anymore. The next day, a letter arrived. No return address, but the handwriting was instantly familiar, slanted, aggressive, the way Rick used to write our chore list when I was a kid. I opened it on the porch, standing just outside the reach of the door camera. "Adam, you always were a dramatic little boy, hiding behind your wife like she's your spine. Let's be honest, you didn't cut me off." She did. "Sophie's been turning you against us for years. And now she's got you brainwashed into thinking you're some kind of victim. This family bent over backwards for you. And this is the thanks we get? Overreacting because I helped clean your house? That room was a shrine to a fantasy. You should be grateful I had the guts to bring you back to reality. Someday you'll understand what I did was an act of mercy. Until then, enjoy your little prison." "Dad." I stood there, fingers tight around the paper. I wasn't even angry. Just tired. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. I tore the letter into pieces, dropped them in the trash can, and went inside without saying a word. That same afternoon, we got a box. It was plain brown cardboard. No return label. Inside were a few of the missing nursery items: a plush fox we bought at a craft fair, a stack of folded baby blankets, the rainbow-shaped teether Sophie had found online. No note. No explanation. Just things. We didn't touch them. Left the box on the dining table, like it might explode. 2 days later, another package came. This one had Sophie's name on it. Inside was the knitted hat Lily had worn in the NICU, one we thought was lost. Along with it was a slip of paper with a single line written in all caps. "She deserves to have these." Sophie didn't cry. She just stared at the note, her face unreadable. "Do you think it's him?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "It's him." That night, I filed a report at the local precinct. The officer took notes, looked at the envelope, and said, "As long as it's not threatening, there's not much we can do yet. But you should document everything. Every letter. Every package. Keep a folder." So I did. By the end of the week, the folder had 4 entries. On Friday night, the motion sensor at the front porch pinged our phones just after 11 p.m. I opened the app and watched the feed. Mark was standing at the edge of our porch. Not knocking, not saying a word. Just standing there, hands in his pockets, staring at the door like he wanted to come in but didn't know how. I watched him for almost 3 minutes. Then, without warning, he turned and walked back to his car. Sophie was beside me on the couch, Lily asleep in her arms. She didn't say anything, just held our daughter tighter. I stared at the screen for a long time after Mark left. I didn't know what he wanted. Forgiveness? Relief from guilt? Permission to come back? He wasn't going to get it. The next morning, I called a lawyer. A woman named Dana recommended by one of my coworkers at the school. She specialized in harassment and domestic boundary enforcement. We met in her office that Monday. I brought the letter, the photo of the box, the video of Mark. She didn't flinch. "You're doing the right thing," she said, flipping through the folder. "We'll build a case. It starts with a formal cease and desist." "And if they ignore it?" I asked. "Then we file for a restraining order," she said simply. "We'll be ready." I walked out of her office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. Back home, Sophie and I sat at the kitchen table and wrote out a list of rules. For us. For Lily. For anyone who wanted to be in our lives. Rule number 1. No more surprise visits. Rule number 2. No more second chances. Rule number 3. No contact without consent. Rule number 4. Family is earned, not entitled. We printed it out and taped it to the fridge. Sophie called it the new Constitution. That night, Lily slept in her cradle, our cradle, beneath the soft white glow of the nursery lamp. And for the first time since the NICU, the house was quiet. No buzzing phones. No stomping guilt. Just the sound of our daughter breathing. And the hum of security, holding us in place. We didn't think things could get worse. Not after the letters. The boxes. Mark standing on our porch like a ghost who couldn't let go. But then the note came. It was wedged inside our backyard gate one morning, the paper soggy from dew. Sophie found it while letting the dog out, tucked between the slats like someone had carefully slid it through from the outside. She read it before I did. When I came into the kitchen, she was standing at the counter, the note flat on the wood, her hand covering half of it. Her face was pale. "Adam," she said quietly. He came into the yard. I picked it up. "We'll visit whether you want it or not." Just that. 10 words. All printed in blocky handwriting. But they landed like a punch to the ribs. I called the lawyer immediately. Dana told us to save the note, wear gloves handling it, and bring it in that afternoon. She took one look and nodded. "That's enough," she said. "We're filing for a temporary restraining order. Starting today." I felt my stomach clench. "What if that's not enough?" "We'll make it enough," she said. "You've got documentation, timestamps, video footage, and now this. It's not just harassment anymore. It's a threat." That night, the security system earned its keep. It was just past midnight when the backgate sensor went off. The alert on my phone buzzed so hard it knocked the device off the nightstand. I grabbed it and pulled up the live feed. Someone was at the gate, trying to open it, tugging gently at first, then harder. They wore a hoodie, but the angle of the camera caught the side of the vehicle parked nearby. A familiar shape. A dented bumper. A rusted license plate frame that I knew too well. Rick's truck. Sophie was out of bed in seconds. "What is it?" "Get Lily," I said. "He's here." She didn't ask questions. Just scooped our daughter up from the crib and backed into the bedroom closet where the emergency phone and backup charger were stored. We had a plan for this. We'd rehearsed it once, just in case. I watched the feed, my heart hammering. Rick never got through the gate. The lock held. The lights kicked on automatically, and he flinched, ducked down, and scrambled back to his truck. I called 911. The dispatcher asked all the right questions. I gave her our address, explained the restraining order request already in process, and she sent a unit immediately. By the time the cops arrived, Rick was gone. But he'd left his calling card behind. A bent piece of metal from the gate's latch and a cigarette, but still warm on the pavement. The officers were polite, but firm. They took the evidence, reviewed the camera footage, and one of them radioed for backup to canvass the surrounding blocks. "Pretty clear who it is," the younger officer said. "And with this video? That helps a lot." The older one asked, "Any past incidents?" I gave him the whole file, dates, photos, printouts. Dana had told us to keep it all in one folder, and that folder was starting to feel like a weapon. That night, we didn't sleep. Lily stirred a few times in her sleep, grumbling like newborns do, but Sophie and I just laid there with her between us, wide-eyed, every creak in the house making our skin crawl. In the morning, Dana filed the emergency order. She attached the police report, the video footage from the backyard, and the threatening note. All of it. Later that afternoon, we got a call from the precinct. They'd found Rick's truck parked in an empty lot a few blocks away. A patrol officer reviewed the footage and confirmed it matched the one in our backyard. Do you want to press charges? The officer asked. Yes, I said, without hesitation. He didn't push. Just added my statement to the case and promised they'd keep a closer watch on the area until the court processed the restraining order. Sophie sat beside me at the kitchen table as I hung up the phone. She reached across and gripped my hand. I don't want to run, she said. But I'm scared. I know, I said. So am I. We both looked toward the nursery. Lily was lying in her cradle, arms up like she was flying, the way babies sleep when they're warm and safe. I wasn't going to let Rick take that away from her. Not again. That night, we installed a second deadbolt on the back door and a steel latch on the gate. I added a new feature to the cameras. Instant alerts to the local police department anytime motion was detected in the yard after 10 p.m. We weren't just reacting anymore. We were preparing. I'd spent most of my life ignoring my father's worst instincts, convincing myself that silence was safer than confrontation. But now I had a daughter, a home, a wife who had already lost too much. And if Rick thought he could threaten us into submission, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. 3 days after Rick tried to break into our backyard, Sophie came into the kitchen holding Lily and said, I want to move. I didn't argue. I don't care where, she continued, voice steady but hollow, as long as it's far. Somewhere he can't find us. Somewhere we don't have to keep watching the cameras like a horror movie. I nodded. Okay. That night, after Lily went down, we sat at the kitchen table with our laptops open and started looking. Not for a bigger house. Not for a prettier one. Just for something safer. Gated neighborhoods. Dead-end streets. Homes with zero family history. We wanted to disappear in plain sight. We found it on the second day of searching. A modest 2-story in a gated community about 45 minutes outside Wilmington. Brick exterior. Enclosed backyard. Guard station at the front entrance. No shared fences. No way to get in without being buzzed through. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like a fortress. The price was a stretch, but Sophie's mom had been quietly waiting in the wings. Ever since everything happened, she hadn't pushed, hadn't offered unsolicited advice, just said, whatever you need, I'm here. When we told her our plan, she wired over a sizable gift the same day. I couldn't protect Sophie from him when she was a kid, she told me over the phone. But I can help you both get out now. We didn't tell anyone else. Not friends. Not coworkers. Definitely not family. The paperwork moved fast. We closed in under 2 weeks. The real challenge was moving in secret. We rented an unmarked box truck under my coworker's name. Packed only what mattered, Lily's things, a few pieces of furniture we had managed to salvage or replace, our clothes. Everything else could stay behind. I took down the security cameras the night before the move. We left at 3 a.m., headlights off until we turned out of the neighborhood. It was a quiet drive. Lily slept the whole way. Sophie sat in the passenger seat, one hand on my arm, the other wrapped tightly around her phone. As we pulled onto the new street, the gate opened slowly. I remember Sophie exhaling for the first time in days. This is good, she said. This feels good. And it did. It felt like freedom. Until we pulled into the new driveway and saw what had been left behind. Taped to the front door, just above the lock, was a slip of paper. No envelope. No name. Just 5 words, printed in thick black marker. This is not over. Sophie went pale. I lifted it down without a word and scanned the perimeter. No sign of anyone. No cars. No tire tracks. Nothing. I called the police. Because of the active restraining order, the message was enough to trigger a violation report. Officers came out within the hour. They dusted for prints, photographed the note, and told us to stay inside until they completed a sweep. We'll increase patrol in the area for now, one of them said. But it may be time to consider a formal security firm. We nodded. When they left, we stood in our new foyer, boxes still sealed, furniture still wrapped, and just listened to the silence. Sophie looked at me. How did he even find this place? I don't know, I said, though I have theories. Mark. A slip somewhere in the paperwork. Something we didn't scrub hard enough. Should we leave again? She asked. No, I said, firmer than I felt. We make this home. We lock it down tighter. We shut every door behind us. And that's what we did. We called a local tech company the next morning. By sunset, we had motion sensors, reinforced locks, a new set of hidden outdoor cameras, and a panic button installed in the nursery. We replaced our phones, got new numbers, changed our mailing address to a P.O. box across town. Unlisted, untraceable. Even Lily's pediatrician was chosen with security in mind, someone far enough from our old zip code that no one would make the connection. By the end of the week, the house was a fortress. It wasn't how we imagined raising our daughter, but it was safe. And safety was all that mattered now. One night, a few days later, I stood in the new nursery, watching Lily sleep. Sophie joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. You think he'll stop? She asked. I didn't answer right away. I think, I said finally, that he doesn't get to decide what happens next. She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder. Outside, the street was dark. Quiet. No footsteps. No headlights. Just the steady hum of a home that no one else knew. We were finally starting over. Not from scratch, but from strength. And this time, we were taking no chances. The new house came with silence. Not the kind that feels empty or eerie, but the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. A silence we hadn't known in months. No pounding on the porch. No cameras pinging at midnight. No threats taped to the door. Just Sophie, me, and Lily. Our rebuilt trio. We spent the first few days adjusting. The living room echoed. The kitchen drawers were still half empty. We moved through the space like people walking through a museum, careful, uncertain, grateful. But little by little, we filled it. Sophie started working again. A few freelance photo shoots. Mostly maternity and newborn sessions for clients she handpicked, ones who came referred from a friend she trusted. She met with a local studio that partnered with domestic violence shelters, offering free portraits to women starting over. I watched her come home from her first session with red eyes and a smile. I think I found the right kind of work again, she said. I think she also found a kind of healing. We built a new nursery. Not just a replica of the old one, but something new. The walls were a soft sage green. Sophie painted a mural this time, a winding vine of morning glories that climbed from the corner all the way up to the ceiling, where it bloomed into stars. We put the restored cradle by the window, where sunlight filtered in during the morning hours. Lily started sleeping through the night around then. And I finally went to therapy. It was something Sophie had gently suggested months ago. After the confrontation with my father. After the court filings. After the night I stood in our old backyard with a baseball bat, waiting for Rick to show up again. You're carrying too much, she'd said. She was right. My therapist, a woman named Marianne, listened for the first 3 sessions without saying much. Just let me talk. About Rick. About how we were raised in silence and intimidation. About how I was always waiting for the next outburst, the next insult, the next reason to feel like I wasn't enough. She didn't judge. Didn't offer quick fixes. Just handed me tools I didn't know I needed. You protected your family, she said once. Now it's time to protect yourself, too. I started writing letters I never planned to send. To Rick. To Mark. Even to my mom. Not to reopen wounds, but to name them. To lay the blame where it belonged. Some days, I'd sit in the backyard with a cup of coffee while Lily napped and just breathe. I didn't check the security footage every 10 minutes anymore. I didn't flinch when the doorbell rang. Peace wasn't instant, but it was growing. We changed our contact information with every major institution, banks, doctors, insurance. I even started using my middle name on work documents, just to create some distance. The restraining order became permanent after the second court appearance. Rick didn't show. His lawyer submitted a brief statement, no contest, no admission, just silence. Fine by us. Mark never tried to reach out again. The last time I saw him was on a drive back from the grocery store. His car passed mine at a light, same beat-up hatchback, same slouched posture behind the wheel. He didn't notice me. I didn't honk, didn't wave, just kept driving. We began building new routines. Sophie took Lily to a weekly baby Amy yoga class. I went back to coaching part-time at the local high school. The players didn't know anything about our past. They just knew Coach Adam was the guy who showed up early and stayed late. We made new friends, slowly, carefully. A neighbor named Tasha brought over banana bread one afternoon. You guys are quiet, she said with a smile. That's rare in this neighborhood. Quiet's good. We agreed. Sophie made a photo wall in the hallway. Not of our family, just of us and the people who stood by us. The nurse from the NICU who had held Lily's hand during her first week. Claire, the woman who returned the cradle. Sophie's mom. My therapist. Our lawyer. No more pictures of people who smile while stealing from us, she said. I nodded. Only the ones who showed up. Lily started crawling soon after. Then pulling herself up. Every milestone felt like a flag planted on solid ground. She was healthy. Growing. Unbothered by the past. And we were learning to be that way too. One night, after dinner, I stood at the back window and looked out over the yard. It was quiet, fenced in, and green. Sophie stood beside me, Lily asleep in her arms. We made it, I said softly. We're still making it, she replied. Every day. And she was right. It wasn't about closing a chapter. It was about rewriting the story, word by word, in a place where we finally felt safe. Where no one had keys but us. Where no one got to rewrite our boundaries. Where love wasn't a weapon. Where peace wasn't a someday, it was home. The beach was Lily's first real outing. Not the kind of trip you take for social media photos, or to pretend everything's picture perfect, but the kind where you show up in baggy clothes with snacks stuffed in an old tote and no real plan except to breathe. It was a cool, cloudy morning. Off-season. The sand was mostly empty except for a few joggers and a man with a metal detector pacing the shoreline like a monk. Sophie carried Lily in her arms while I laid out a blanket. She plopped down next to me, her curls tucked under a baseball cap, and smiled. "No cameras," she said. "No cameras," I agreed. We sat quietly, just watching the waves. Lily, now nearly 8 months old, wriggled in Sophie's lap and squealed when the wind brushed her face. She kicked her legs like she could run straight into the ocean. "This is her first ocean," I said. Sophie nodded. "And she already loves it." We stayed for over an hour. No schedule. No to-do list. Just early feedings, shared glances, and the sound of water. This was what we'd fought for. Peace. It didn't come all at once. It hadn't arrived with the move, or the restraining order, or even the new nursery. It came in moments, slow, subtle, like sun slipping through clouds. Like the quiet evenings where Sophie would sit in the living room, rocking Lily, humming softly under her breath. Or the early mornings where I'd find myself smiling for no reason, coffee in hand, listening to Lily babble from her crib. It came in the way we stopped explaining ourselves to people. We didn't owe anyone an update. Sophie's mother remained our only regular family contact. She visited once a week, always calling first, always bringing something thoughtful, organic formula, a thrifted board book, homemade soup. She never asked about Rick or Mark. She never pried. She simply existed as support, not pressure. That was love. The rest of them? Gone. Blocked. Erased. No apologies ever came, not from Rick, not from Mark, not even from my mother. But over time, their silence stopped feeling like punishment. It felt like relief. One afternoon, Sophie came home from a photo shoot and dropped a box of baby supplies on the kitchen counter. "What's this?" I asked. "Extras," she said. One of the moms brought a whole bag of stuff she didn't need. I thought we could donate it. We packed a few more things, clothes Lily had outgrown, toys she didn't touch anymore, unopened diapers. Sophie took them to a local shelter. When she got back, she didn't say much. Just kissed me on the cheek and smiled. That became a habit. Giving back, quietly. Not to prove anything. Just to live in alignment with the life we were rebuilding. One night, I stood in the hallway, staring at the photo wall Sophie had created. No family portraits. Just snapshots of the people who mattered. A print of Claire, the woman who returned our cradle, holding her own newborn. A Polaroid of Sophie and her mom laughing in the kitchen. A candid of me holding Lily during one of her first stroller walks, the sky gold behind us. In the center was a simple white frame with Sophie's hand-lettered quote. "You are our wildest wish come true." Lily stirred on the monitor. I walked into her room, gently adjusted the blanket over her small body, and just watched her sleep for a minute. Her soft breathing, the way her tiny fingers twitched like she was dreaming, this was it. Not the house. Not the locks. Not even the victories over the past. This. This was the proof that we survived. That we made something beautiful out of the wreckage. Later that weekend, we returned to the beach. It was a little warmer, and the tide was low. Sophie spread out the same old blanket while I carried Lily in one arm and a chipped thermos of coffee in the other. We sat in silence for a while, watching the horizon. Then Sophie turned to me and said, "I'm not scared anymore." I didn't say anything right away. Just squeezed her hand. Lily was crawling now clumsily, but determined. She pressed her palms into the sand and laughed as the grain slipped between her fingers. The wind ruffled her curls, and she squealed again, a sound so free it made my chest ache. I looked around. No strangers watching us. No trucks creeping past. No shadows waiting at the edge of the frame. Just ocean. Sky. The three of us. Sophie leaned her head on my shoulder. "This is what it's supposed to feel like," she whispered. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I believed her. We had fought to reclaim this space. And now, finally, we were here. Present. Whole. Unafraid.